Hi everyone, welcome to today's talk. My name is Sarah and I'll be taking you through today. If you need to ask questions or things like that, you can do so on your right hand side. You'll have a space where you can, chat. It's called the audience chat. So you can chat there and put in your questions. Also, I've put in a link there for our communities page where you can, connect and join the community and discuss all things IELTS. You can also take this time to connect with fellow learners as well as me. You can do that on your page as well, where you can just click connect. Okay. I think that's all I have to say, so we can just get started. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, so let's get started. Again, today's talk we'll be discussing the errors that we should avoid while attempting the IELTS academic writing section. Okay, so again, just a little introduction to the IELTS. For those of you who are just new to the term IELTS, this is just a quick introduction for you. For those of you who already know about the IELTS and the exam, this is just a little recap for you. So basically, again, IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System. It's an international exam for non-native English speakers who would like to work, study, or migrate abroad. Okay, there are 4 parts to the test. It tests 4 skills. That's your reading, your listening, your speaking, and your writing. And today we'll be talking about the writing section. Okay, so the IELTS academic writing section. Okay, basically you have 1 hour to complete 2 tasks. Okay, so that's task 1 and task 2. Task 1, it's a formal writing task where you'll have 20 minutes to complete this task, okay, in 150 words. And basically all you have to do is summarize either a graph or a table or a chart or a process. A process basically, you know, how something works and things like that. Again, in at least 150 words, right? So you're writing a short report that's summarizing the main features of the data presented to you. Okay. And then for task 2, again, it's a formal writing task. So both these tasks are formal writing tasks, okay? And this is in a form of an essay, okay? You'll have 40 minutes to complete the task in 250 words or a little bit more. And basically this essay could relay either your opinions or discuss advantages or disadvantages, discuss points of view, or provide solutions, okay? Right. So I know this is a lot of text here, but bear with me. Here are some sample questions of task 1. Okay, so on the side you have basically a pie chart. Okay, this is one example that you can get, a pie chart, or in the middle you have a table, or on the right hand side a bar chart. Okay, so this is some of these examples that you can get. You'll get 1 out of these questions for the exam. Here are some more. On the left side, you have the process, a process kind of question. You have a map question where you have to, discuss the main features that you can see there, and also a diagram. Okay, these are just a few examples. I'll just go back. Okay, pie chart, table, bar chart, process, maps, and diagrams. Okay, and then some examples of task 2. Okay, so this is again the essay question, right? So again, this is how it'll look. You should spend 40 minutes on the task, write about the following topic. Okay, so this first example is an agree or disagree kind of question. Okay, where you'll have to, put in your opinion and tell whether you agree to the first part of the question or whether you disagree. Okay, so the first part is some people feel that legal age at which people can marry should be at least 21. Okay, so you're discussing both sides and then giving your opinion. Okay, the second one is basically, discussing the advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so for example here, information technology enables many people to do their work outside of their workplace. What are the advantages and disadvantages of that? Okay, the next one on the top right-hand side that we have is a problem and solution kind of question. where you're discussing, here the question is, many countries are experiencing serious problems with their environment, with pollution of their land, water, and air. Discuss the problems, and then how might they be reduced? That's the solution part of the question. Okay. Another one would be, giving your opinion. So some people believe that social media sites such as Facebook or Twitter have a negative impact on young people and their ability to form personal relationships. Others believe that these sites bring people together in a beneficial way. So you're weighing out your options and you're also giving opinions about it. Okay. The next one that we have, an example would be a two-part question. Okay, so here your question is: people who live in large cities, face a range of problems in their daily life. What are the main problems in cities faced, and how can these problems be tackled? So it's a two-part question. What are the main problems, and how can they be tackled? Okay. And then another example of an opinion kind of question as well. Violence plays in playgrounds is increasing. However, it's important that parents should teach children not to hit back at bullies. Again, an opinion, you state both sides, why it kind of happens, and then, present your essay. Okay, so just to recap right now, going back, we have looked at examples of task 1, okay, and we've looked at task 2 examples. Okay, all right. So again, I said this before in my previous talk, but again, I'm going to repeat it. I think it's always important to understand the assessment criteria, understand what you're going to be assessed on during this exam so that it's easier for you to prepare. You'll know where your areas to work on. You'll know how much time you have to spend on a certain area, how you can improve, right? So this is the assessment criteria. The first one is task achievement or task response. For task 1 of the writing section, it's called task achievement. For task 2, it's called task response. Again, it's the same thing. Basically, it's how well you answer the question, your ability to show that you've answered all parts of the question, how well you've put your ideas on the page. Okay, the next one is coherence and cohesion. Okay, basically, the ability to present a well-structured essay or a well-structured answer. Okay, how it's structured using paragraphs, using the right essay format. Okay, we'll get more into that as well as we move along. The next criteria is lexical resource. The ability to show the use of a wide range of vocabulary and how well you use your vocabulary. And last but not least, grammatical range and accuracy, where you show, your ability of, using a wide grammatical range and using your grammar well, okay, and using grammar forms, okay. So that's the assessment criteria. Keep it in mind when you're preparing for your exam as well. Okay, sorry. So let's go on to discuss what we're here for today, which is basically discussing the errors that people do make during their writing exam. Okay, so we'll be looking at it in the general form for task 1 and for task 2. Okay. I'm so sorry. General errors that people, make. First of all, going below the word count. Okay, so this is quite important because as we saw at the beginning, for task 1, you have a word count of 150 words. And for task 2, it's 250 words. So a common thing to do is just go below the word count. And actually that does affect, your task response band score or your task achievement score, okay? So here's a tip for you when you're, practicing and preparing for this. When you're practicing, do, a kind of a word to line count. So when you're practicing, maybe you have 10 words on a line. So when you, count your lines during the exam, you won't have to count each word. You can just count the lines that are there and you can reach your word count limit, okay? All right. Next one is submitting incomplete answers. This is quite common as well. It's something that we might do in a hurry. We might have so many things that we want to put into our essay. We want to cram in as much stuff as we can that we might not, answer all parts of the question, or we might leave some thoughts hanging. Like when you're presenting in task 2, when you're presenting, like, in your essay, presenting examples or ideas, you might leave it halfway through. And then that becomes an incomplete answer. There also, it will affect your task response band score. So make sure that, you answer all parts of the question. You are, going through your essay again, leave some time to go through your essay again, and make sure all thoughts are complete and all, parts of the question are complete. Okay. All right. Next one is incomplete spelling. This can always get the best of us. Some of us are not avid spellers, or we might have a certain issue with spelling. So incorrect spelling is another kind of error that we do see during these exams. And basically, you will get docked down in your lexical resource for incorrect spelling. Okay. Also, one thing about spelling is, as this is an international exam, you can use US or UK spelling. Okay, there's no issues with that. For example, yeah, the US and UK spellings. But the thing is, you need to keep it consistent throughout your answers. That is, again, in task 1 and in task 2. So when I say be consistent, if you're following the US spelling, follow it throughout your answers. If you're using the UK spelling, again, follow it throughout the answers. It becomes inconsistent when you're using both forms of spelling. So for example, the word color, COLOR for the US, if you're using that in your essay, and later on you're spelling color COLOUR, the UK way of spelling it, there again, your lexical resource will go down because you're not keeping your spelling consistent. Okay, and if you're someone who has trouble with spelling, another tip for you would be, learn some spelling rules. So when I mean spelling rules, I mean like, I before E except after C. Okay, so like believe BILIEVE, or receive RECEIVE. Okay, that's just one rule that you can learn. Don't go too much into learning these rules as well, but just get a bit of knowledge on it. And also, you can do some spelling test preparation. You can just take these online spelling tests, quick ones, just to practice your spelling online. Okay, all right. Next one is lifting words and or sentences from the question. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean to say, and I'll just go to give you an example. Okay, so let's look at this example here on the left. All right, so the question is, the diagram illustrates the process that is used to manufacture bricks for the building industry. Now, when I say lifting, okay, we basically mean you're putting that same sentence down in your answer. Okay, so in task 1, you should have like a sort of introduction or like a summary kind of sentence before you start presenting, the main features. And what happens is you will directly lift that question and put it in your essay. First of all, that won't really count as, part of your word count, as well as you will get marked down for lifting words. So here's a better way of saying it. You can say the diagram explains the way in which bricks are made for the building and or construction industry. Okay, so we've just changed the word illustrates, and we've changed, the way in which bricks are made. We've kept that sentence. Okay, so that's how we, can avoid lifting words and sentences from the question. And the tip is to paraphrase. So learn how to paraphrase, learn synonyms, learn, different ways of writing your answer and not lifting from the question. Okay. Okay, another general mistake that happens, and it gets the best of us as well, is not proofreading before submitting your paper. Okay, proofreading, going through your paper, again, making sure you have all your sentences dotted, your I's dotted, your T's crossed, making sure that, spellings are correct. okay? Making sure that you answered both part of the questions. Proofreading is very, very important, okay? And the thing is, the reason why we might not be proofreading our answers before we submit it is probably because we feel like, we're stressed on time. As this is a timed exam, usually we tend to spend a little bit more time on task 2, and, we will spend too much time writing so much that we won't leave ourselves enough time to proofread, right? So the tip here is make sure you leave maybe 5 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a little too much, but maybe at least 5 minutes towards the end to proofread your answer, okay? Because there are times where you will just quickly find those mistakes, and that could be the mistake that would, bring you down a band or bring you up a band. So proofreading is very important. Okay. All right, I'll just give you a minute to just have a look at these general errors and, what we talked about. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the common errors made during writing task 1. Okay, so the first one is not writing an overview. So hang on, let's just discuss what an overview is. And we did briefly touch it as well. It's basically, a summary of the main or most important points that you see in the graph or the chart or anything that's presented to you, the form of data that's presented to you. So that one line, okay, that starting line that you have that shows that, you've understood what it is. And what happens is when you write an overview, not only does it boost your score, it's supposed to be there. So you're supposed to, it will definitely, give you better chances of getting a better score for task 1. It also shows the examiner that you can identify the main points and, how you have translated that in your answer. Okay, so again, this boosts your task achievement score. Okay, so make sure that when you're preparing and during your exam that you're writing an overview for the task 1 answer. Okay, the second one is summarizing with bullet points instead of using an essay format and or paragraphs. Okay. We might be practicing so much that on the day something might happen, we might get really stressed out, we might be worried that we don't have enough time to write down everything, so we might just answer the question with bullet points, with numbers and things like that, and not following the proper essay format or the proper format given to us. This will definitely dock down your score. It docks down your coherence and that CC score, the criteria, it will bring it down, okay? So make sure when you're writing your answers, when you're practicing and on the day, you are writing using the correct format, okay? No bullet points, no summarizing with bullet points, no giving, numbers, no giving all kinds of things, just make sure you're following the form, okay? Okay, the next one is using an informal writing tone. So when I say informal writing tone, I mean, how we're speaking, exactly translating how we're speaking on the page. So again, using different kind of sentences, like very casual sentences, not following the proper format. Okay, just remember that this is a formal writing tone that you should be using. So make sure that you keep in line with that. Okay, all right. Another kind of error or thing that happens is we tend to spend more time than necessary. Okay, so when we're talking about spending more time than necessary in terms of tasks, we might spend more time on task 1 than necessary. And actually speaking, we've got the breakdown, spend 20 minutes or so on task 1 and the remaining 40 minutes on task 2. We might end up spending, half an hour on task 1 or 40 minutes on task 1 for some reason or the other. And we won't have enough time to write task 2, or it could be vice versa. We might spend so much time on task 2 if you choose to do task 2 first, spend more time on task 2, and then, maybe, spend 50 minutes on task 2 and only 10 minutes in task 1, and that might not be enough time. So make sure that even when you're practicing and when you're writing at the exam, you've practiced and you've managed your time well so that you have enough time to answer both questions, as well as give yourself some time to proofread at the end. Okay. All right, so those were the general mistakes, or the errors that can be committed during your IELTS Task 1 writing exam. Okay, now we're going to move on to the common errors made during the writing Task 2. Sorry. Okay, so here is a really, really important one, I feel. I'm so sorry. And that is not addressing both parts of the question. Okay, so we're going to go back to this one. Okay, so here again, like we discussed, I'm extremely sorry, very bad cough. Okay, so here the question is, people who live in large cities face a range of problems in their daily life. What are the main problems in cities faced, and how can these problems be tackled? So part one of the question is, what are the main problems people face in those cities, and how can these problems be tackled? That's the second part. What happens is we might just see the first part of the question, or we might see the second part of the question, and we might forget, or we might remember, like, we know that it's there, but we haven't included it in our answer. Okay, so it's really important that, when you're reading your question, if you have a two-part question, if this is one of the questions that you have, make sure that you are addressing both parts of the question. Okay, so a tip here you can do is you can probably, when you're going through your questions, underline it. Underline one part of the question, underline the second part of the question, and make sure that when you give yourself that extra 5 minutes that you've said, okay, I've answered both parts of the question. Okay. Second one that can happen is we might be somebody who loves writing. We can probably go on for pages and pages and pages and write so much. And there's a tendency that we could go off topic or go off, like, not answer that question. So here's what I mean by this. Okay. Writing about the topic and not the question. Okay. So let's look at this one. On the right side, many countries are experiencing serious problems with their environment, with pollution of their land, water, and air. What are these problems, and how might they be reduced? Okay, so here the topic is actually, the environment and, issues that the environment is facing. Okay, the question here is, what are these problems and how might they be reduced? Okay, that is the main part of the question. The topic is about the environment. So when I mean to say, to write about the topic and not the question, you could probably get a little sidetracked and maybe start writing about the question, but then deviate into something about the environment. Like maybe you'll go on to say, talk about global warming and make that the whole, main idea of your answer. And that's where you're kind of going on about the topic and not the question. So make sure that your answer, usually this is for task 2 mainly, that you're answering the question, okay? You can bring in little points about the topic if it helps your answer to the question, okay? All right. Next one, underdeveloping your ideas. Okay, so this is very common. Sometimes you might get lucky and you might get a topic that you know a lot about, or a topic that you're very keen on writing about, okay? And when that happens, you'll start getting a ton of ideas that you want to cram into your essay, okay? Out of enthusiasm, out of excitement, not wanting to, maybe boosting your score. So you'll tend to just cram all these ideas in. But what happens is when you cram too many ideas in, you start underdeveloping them. When I say underdeveloping them, I mean not giving enough, substance to back up your answer. Okay, so for example, you might have 5 ideas, but you've only developed 2 of them, and the other 3 are just hanging off the page. They're just there, right? So there it becomes an underdeveloped idea, and it won't add to your essay as much as it could if you had developed it. So here's a little tip for you. Why don't when you're practicing or during the exam, pick 2 to 3 main ideas for your essay and build on those. Okay, If you have a fourth and a fifth by chance, make sure that those ideas are developed and make sure that they make sense and that they should be there. But mainly take 2 to 3 ideas and put that in your essay. Okay, here's another one, not having enough paragraphs. Okay, so we discussed about how, the structure of our essay should be correct. It should be in the right essay format, okay, without using bullet points, without using, numbers or headings or things like that. Okay, so if you don't have enough paragraphs or if your paragraphs are not well defined, then your CC mark or the criteria CC it will reduce. Okay, so make sure you have enough paragraphs. Okay, and here's a tip for you. I have an example structure, okay, that you can use. So I've given you the parts of the essay. This is mainly for task 2. Okay, you should have an introduction, 1 paragraph for the introduction, maybe 2 to 3 paragraphs for the body. That when I say body, that means your ideas. So that's why I said previously, keep 2 to 3 main ideas, main points, and develop those in the body. So maybe 1 paragraph for each idea. Then you have your conclusion, okay, which is 1 paragraph. So in total, you might have 4 to 5 paragraphs. Okay? Okay. All right. Okay. Again, using the incorrect format, just a little bit more. I'm emphasizing this quite a bit because it is a common error. Again, with the time constraint and things like that, we might think that, this could happen when, we might have enough paragraphs. We might have in our third and first and second paragraph, we might have the proper essay structure, right? We might have, proper solid paragraph with ideas for paragraph 1 or paragraph 2, sorry, paragraph 3 with another idea. And we might find that for paragraph 4, the last part of our idea, we're running out of time. So we're just going to bullet point. That's where, we'll get docked down again for having incorrect format. If you use like bullet points or headings, subheadings, numbering, okay, all that we should avoid, not try and avoid, we should avoid, so that we are presenting the correct format. Our answer is presented in a correct format, okay? So when you're practicing, please do practice that. Please avoid using these bullet points and numbering and headings and things like that. Please practice in the correct format. Practice using the correct format, sorry. And make sure that you are practicing also time management skills so that you have enough time to present, practice presenting all your ideas. Okay? All right. Changing your opinion throughout the essay. There is another error, sorry, that we see, that we face when we're writing our task 2. Okay? It's very easy to change our opinions throughout the essay. Okay, we might think, oh no, wait, but this works for this, but no, I disagree with this, and you could be conflicted throughout your essay writing. Okay, so here's an example of that. Some people feel that the legal age at which people can marry should be at least 21. To what extent do you agree or disagree? So here you're playing with opinions, right? So what happens is basically, yeah, you might agree with this, or you might disagree with this, or you might have wavering, opinions about it. Here's a tip for you. It doesn't matter whether you relate to the question or not. Pick one side, whether you agree or whether you disagree, and use that to build your essay. Okay, especially in the conclusion, when you're writing your opinion, pick one opinion and write that. It doesn't have to be something that you agree with also. Okay, the examiner is not going to know you're just writing your exam, so yeah, just pick one opinion and stick to that. Okay. Again, another error is not providing supporting examples, right? So this kind of links with underdeveloping your ideas. Not providing supporting examples. You could have, a certain idea, but you haven't presented examples for that. You've just given the idea. You haven't developed it. Again, like I said, it ties in with underdeveloping your ideas. You haven't, given supporting examples. So here, what you can do is use your own life experiences, use your job experience, your home, your personal life experiences, your family experiences, any kind of thing that will help what you're presenting in your essay, use it, okay? The next one is overusing connectives. So first of all, let's just talk about what connectives are. These are and, or, but. Firstly, secondly, when you're doing paragraphs, first of all, second of all, um, as a result of this, this is what happens, or accordingly, or things like that. So what happens is if we overuse these connectives, your essay will just be filled with these kind of words and connectives, which may or may not make sense, which may or may not need to be there. And you will start getting docked down for your lexical resource and things like that. So just use a few connectives, use them because they will boost your score, but don't use them because they also count for your word count. So you don't want to be using excessive, connectives or excessive vocabulary, excessive words that might not need to be there, and you can probably use your word count somewhere else, like some way else. Okay. And I think this is the last one. No conclusion, okay? This is important. Imagine, you're writing something, just for example, take a letter. You're reading a letter and there's, it just abruptly stops, right? So the conclusion acts as a closure to your essay, summarizing your points and your opinions, okay? So it has to be there. And it also will dock down your score if it's not there, okay? Your task response score will go down if you do not have a conclusion. Okay, so basically just make sure you leave enough time to also conclude all your points, summarize whatever you've written in paragraph 2, 3, and 4. Okay, those are your idea paragraphs. And make sure also if it's something where you need to present your opinion there as well. Okay, so that way the whole, it sums up everything, and it ties in your whole task too. And to be honest, it just ties in your whole writing exam together. Okay, so you'll have a clean, crisp thing to submit. Okay, so these are the common errors that we see in task 2. Okay, so now just some tips. Practice line writing, like I mentioned before. When I say line writing, just the quick, thing of saying it. When you're practicing, try, seeing how many words you can fit on a line. So if it's 10 words or 12 words, and practice writing in that. So that way, when it comes to your exam, when you're counting words, you don't have to count each word because nobody wants to spend time doing that. Just count how many lines and do the multiplication. Okay, the next one, like I mentioned before, learn spelling rules or do spelling tests. Again, don't be so hard on yourself about learning those spelling rules, but just get an idea, just do some research, just get some kind of knowledge about it. Okay, and if you're somebody who struggles with spelling, do some practice tests online. Okay, the next one, which I did stress heavily on, was pick and develop 3 ideas. Okay, this works for task 2 mainly. Okay, make sure that, when you're writing, when you're practicing, figure out 3 ideas and just work with those. Okay, the next one, practice using the writing structure. Okay, like I said, I showed on the other slide, introduction, the body, and the conclusion. So your introduction would be 1 paragraph, your body would be 2 to 3 paragraphs, and then your conclusion, which is 1 paragraph, giving you a total of maybe 4 to 5 paragraphs. Okay, again for task 2. Choose one opinion and stick to that. Okay, whether you agree or whether you disagree. Okay, it works mainly for those kind of questions. Choose that one opinion and go with it. And again, can't stress it enough. Practice, practice, practice. Practice your time management skills. Practice writing these essays. Practice, how many words you can write on one line, or practice, fitting in with the word count. Practice. What else? Anything to do with writing practice. Set yourself down. There are many practice tests that you can take. Go through the whole test and just practice. Yeah. Okay. So yes, now I'd like to open the floor to our audience. Give me a minute. Yeah, so I'd just like to open the floor to our participants, our attendees. And if you have any questions so far or, anything that I could answer, now is the time to ask. Okay, so the first question that we have is, which tense should we use during the writing task? Okay, that's a good question. You can use either the past, present, or future tense. Again, it all depends on the question, right? So most of these questions are set in the present, but you can kind of take, if you have an idea that's before it was like this, you can use the past tense, or maybe in the future. So when it's like a solution kind of question, problem and solution kind of question, you can say you can use the future tense. So it all depends on where your thought is, and make sure that you're following that tense though. Okay, that you should do practice on, and yeah, make sure you know when to use which tense. Our next question is, how do we write a conclusion in the IELTS writing task 2? Okay, again, very good question. So basically, again, your conclusion is a summary of what you have said in your previous paragraph. So that's paragraph 2, 3, and 4, if you have 3 ideas. And also you're including your opinion. So if it's an opinionated question where you have to give your opinion, like agree or disagree, make sure that is there as well. So sum up your points, okay, sum up your ideas, and then just present your opinion. Okay, so that's how you could write your conclusion in the IELTS writing task 2. Okay, the next question is, can I write in capital letters in the IELTS writing task 1 or 2? It's best that you write, starting with capital letters and then, going on to lowercase. So I wouldn't suggest that you write everything in capital letters. Follow the usual writing pattern where, the first letter of the word is capital and then so on. And then after, the sentence is over, continue writing. But yeah, write it in the usual way that you write, not all in caps. Okay, next question that we have, should I give my IELTS writing test for recheck if I'm not sure about the band received? A similar quest about reevaluation has been spun on nebula.com, so you can check out the answer there as well. Good question. So, we've seen that, during the writing task, we might be really, thorough with what we've written. We might be really excited and really happy about what we've written, but we might not have received the score that we thought we would get, or the score that we wanted. So the thing is, if you are not happy with your score, you can definitely give it for a recheck. Okay, there is a process for that. So yeah, definitely if you're not happy with your, band score, or if you're not sure about the band score that you received, if you feel that you've received a lower score than what you should have gotten, do give it in for a recheck. That's totally acceptable. In the IELTS writing task, can I write with the pencil? Yes, you can write with the pencil. Okay. You can write with the pencil solely because it's easier. It's easy to erase your, mistakes instead of having your pen crossing it out. I think they do suggest that you use a pencil. So bring at least 2 to 3 pencils with a sharpener and an eraser as well, a separate eraser, so that it's easier for you to, if you make mistakes, to make your paper look neater, you can, bring a pencil. That's easy. Our next question is, how can I do better in the IELTS writing without having an evaluator? I study on my own from YouTube. Okay, so that's totally fine as well. You do not need to have an evaluator to evaluate. You can self-evaluate as well, and that's actually really good, because there you can see where, you personally can see, oh, okay, I've made maybe this mistake here, or this is the sample answer. Okay, here's how I can improve. So it's good. What you can do is online as well, there are different sample question and answers that you can see. Okay, you write, I would suggest, write your own answers and of the question, and then go see whether there's a sample answer as well. And compare your answer with the sample answer and see where you could improve, where you have, kind of matched the sample answer, where points you've left out. Okay, so make sure that you check out these sample answers as well. It's a really good way to study. Yeah. What are the differences between computer-based and paper-based IELTS writing test? It's a two-part question, so we'll make sure we answer both. Do I get an advantage with one over the other? Okay, so let's talk about the differences between the computer-based and paper-based. So paper-based, obviously you're sitting at the exam center and you're writing the exam again with a pencil pen. On the computer, you are writing it on the computer. There's a separate site, and you'll be, typing your answers in. Again, when you're writing it on the computer, all the spell checks will be blocked. All the things that you usually have to help you type, your spell check, anything like that, they will all be blocked. Okay, so that's the difference. Obviously, paper-based, you're writing it down. Computer, you're doing it on the computer, you're typing it. You'll have everything timed. They have a website set up for that. Everything is locked and loaded on that site. The second part of the question is, do I get an advantage with one over the other? Honestly speaking, I don't think there's an advantage whether you do the paper test or the computer test. They're both the same, right? So there's no, significant advantage of which one you choose to do. Good question. Just one more thing that I'd like to say about the computer-based test also, here this could be another error that could be made, is the error of typos, okay? So when you're typing, it's very easy to make a typo mistake, so make sure again that you try not to do that. Give yourself time to proofread before you click submit to submit your answers, okay? I'm stuck on band 6.5 in writing and I'm very frustrated with the score. How do I improve my writing band from 6.5 to 8? Good question. So, yes, 6.5, you would like to get an 8. That's great. I love the ambition. What you can do is, also I find it very helpful again to just check out the criteria that you're being marked on. Check out, what's being assessed in those criteria. So on the IDP website, basically you have, the band scores and how, you will be marked. So band 6, this is what you've done, band 7, band 8, and band 9. So just have a look at those criteria formats and see, what's being marked there so you can improve. So you can jump from a 6, 6.5 to an 8. What is the common IELTS task 2 essay type that will be asked in the exam? So again, the most common one would probably be, giving your opinions, advantages and disadvantages. They're all pretty common as such. I don't think we can narrow down on one of them. Most of the time, I guess it's, yeah, advantages and disadvantages. That does not mean, though it's a common question type that would be asked, that doesn't mean you only practice that one. Do have a look at all types and all forms of the essay kind of questions that could come up and practice at least a couple of them so that you're familiar with all of them, and yeah, that you know what's going to come up. That's a good question, actually. Can I get my IELTS writing checked online on Nebula? Okay, so we can check your writing, if you do submit your writing samples. We do have a Skylift for that, okay? It's done by me as well. It's a personal guidance Skylift, one-to-one, where, you'll get a task. I'll send you a task. You can complete that task and we can go through it together. We can look at we can discuss how you've attempted the task 1, task 2, ways to improve. Okay, I'll be going through it with you as well. The only thing with that is I probably won't be able to give you a predicted score, a predicted band score, but I will be there to help you and guide you and evaluate your answers. So definitely do have a look at that. Can I write an overview in the last paragraph in the writing task 1? Okay, so your overview basically is at the beginning, okay, the last paragraph. Writing task 1, there aren't so many paragraphs. It's basically a summary, so maybe just 2 paragraphs at the most. Okay, so your overview comes at the beginning, okay, at the beginning of your answer, and then you go on to summarize the main points in the question. So like if it's a graph, summarize the graph points. If it's a chart, summarize those. So your overview should be at the beginning. I think we have time for maybe one or two or a couple more questions. There's a couple of questions here. Is there a word limit to the body paragraphs in the IELTS academic writing task 2? So let me just answer that part first, okay? Right, so the word limit is the overall word limit. So since we're talking about writing task 2, we're talking about 250 words minimum, okay? If you go under that, what happens is you start getting docked down, okay? So to answer that question, there is no word limit to the body paragraphs in the IELTS writing task 2. It's the overall limit, okay? The 250 words overall. Okay, that's what you should be concerned about. So don't limit yourself in the body when you're presenting your ideas. Moreover, focus on the overall word limit. Okay, for computer delivered IELTS, I can write one extra word, but it gets counted. But on paper-based, it might be overlooked by the teacher, saving our score, isn't it? Okay, so the only thing that I have to say about that though is just make sure that you're there within the word limit, nothing under, nothing too over as well. One thing that I do want to say about the word limit is if you do go a little over 150 words, 250 words, that's fine. You won't be penalized. You'll only be it'll only be looked at if you go under the word count. But a little word of advice, if you do go over the word count, what happens is mistakes tend to be made. You're at risk of making more mistakes because you have so many things to write that you might not focus on it. So try and stick between 250 to 260 words or something like that, right? Okay, I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions, if anything at all, before we end. After this talk, I will post a feedback link in our discussion group. So if you could just fill that out and give some feedback, that would be great. We really appreciate that. Also, upcoming skylifts, like I mentioned before, on our page, I do have some skylifts that I have listed for one-to-one guidance. That is for the writing, the listening, and the reading. Okay, so do sign up if you feel like you would require one-on-one guidance for any of those. Of course, we'll be expanding it and adding more topics that you could join as well. Like I just want to go back to that one question where it was about can I get my IELTS writing checked online on Nebula? Yes, again, you can. Do sign up for the one-to-one personal guidance session, and I will be there to help you with that. Okay, and last but not least, I also just want to put this link in again one more time. This link is for the community page that we have to discuss all things IELTS. Okay, you'll have other learners there in the group as well, where you can talk about the IELTS, discuss different things maybe about certain parts of the exam, certain sections of the exam. So there's a community that we have built for you. So do have a look at that. Do join that community and interact with all of us there as well. Okay. So that brings us to the end of today's talk. Again, thank you so much for taking time out to join us today, join me today. And again, I hope this topic was insightful for you. I hope, it kind of helped. I hope, with presenting these errors that are made during the writing exam, you are a little bit more mindful of that and you'll know like, okay, here's what I have to do and here's what I have to watch out for. So I really do hope this talk was beneficial for you all. Please do share it with your friends. If you find that it's something that could help, somebody who's preparing for the IELTS, do share it with them as well. And yeah, I hope you guys had a good time today. Thank you so much for joining and have a good evening. Bye.